So the male kangaroo has an issue with the female kangaroo. The female kangaroo has a pouch. The male kangaroo has nothing. He has pouch envy. He says to the female kangaroo, "What, can't I at least get a pocket?" You guys need to start watching Seinfeld or something. This generational gap between us is really becoming an issue as we lead into these shows. But nonetheless, welcome into this edition of TBL News the Pod, or TBL News the Video Pod if you're watching us over there on tbltv.tv or on YouTube. You're seeing two faces in front of you. Neither one of them has lips moving. That's because I am playing the role of the disembodied voice once again, as I believe I'll do every Tuesday evening here on the West Coast when I meet up with Jack Morgan and Owen Whetstone. Jack, Owen, starting with Jack, how you guys doing today?
You know, I'm doing pretty good. By the way, about the Seinfeld, about not watching Seinfeld, I've been told I should watch it by many people. Just haven't really found the time. But I heard it's a good show. No.
Haven't found the time, says the dude with the coiffed hair in the tank top who was just sitting out on the quad at Duquesne having the time of his life.
It's a beautiful day out there. We started getting chilly in late October. It's been chilly all the way around. Looks like it's finally starting to take a turn for warm weather. So gotta embrace it, you know.
You got to embrace it. Yeah, sure. You got to embrace it. You got to get outside.
Yeah,
but for my money, you got to stay inside. Let them all go fool around outside in the nice weather. You study up on your Seinfeld. Owen, you're coming to us from the Midwest. How's the weather in the Midwest today?
It's been rainy here recently for a pretty long time now, but it is getting warmer as well. So starting to have that kind of spring feel in the air, which is definitely nice. And on your Seinfeld remark, I have not watched it, but I have watched Curb Your Enthusiasm, and I was
okay. Okay, you're watching in
Very
reverse.
funny.
All right. I
feel wrong for watching Curb Your Enthusiasm before Seinfeld. I don't know. It's just that feeling.
Let me ask you: do you guys also
bad.
listen to Wings before you listen to the Beatles, or is this reference also completely missing you?
No comment.
I listen to country music. I've heard the Beatles. I don't know.
Oh my goodness. Well, let's talk some basketball, boys. At least we can connect on that. All right. How does that sound? Let's jump into it. Friday night, the Patroons had a game. Friday night, Kokomo had a game. We're going to kick off this podcast talking about the Patroons. Boy, this was a basketball game. This was like a slugfest.
Oh, yeah.
This was one of those sort of Northeast type battles you really like to see. It was still chilly in Albany. It wasn't this spring-like weather that Shakespeare would write about in his sonnets. No, it was a chilly, still wintry night in Albany. And the defending NBLC champions came down from Canada and played one heck of a game against Albany. But Jack, as you cite, even in the title of your article about this game, the Patroons snag an emotional win over the Lightning, 96-91. Talk to us about the emotions that were running in this game. What do you mean by that?
Honestly, I think the word that comes to mind for me is an establishment, an establishing win. I think there's a lot riding on this game, a lot of momentum. Heck, we talked about it on the pod last week. We really honed in on it, saying if they can at least play with them, at least, and put up a fight, and if they can win, wow, that would be a heck of a win. One word that didn't come to mind then, and I should have said it, was establishing. Another player, the player who embodied this establishing emotion factor, was Shadell Millinghouse. In his first game back, he was the 2019 Finals MVP, and he comes back and so much energy. And and the announcers for Albany are saying they don't know if he was even going to play. And credit to them, this is they're right. This was his first game back on the Patroons, and he comes out. He played a lot of minutes, and he was productive. Started out a little slow, but once he started getting to that group, the whole team started getting behind him. Every time he scores a basket, London and London called timeout, he'd be saying to the fans, "I'm back." Well, he was indeed back. He had a heck of a game, 15 points, 12 rebounds. Really great outing from him. And that emotion that he brought, that new sense of, fresh air to this team really helped them, because in the second quarter, went down 9, and it almost looked like, oh no, London might be running away with this one. That's what I thought in my head watching it on Friday night. But no, Millinghouse would not let that happen. And he drove his team closer at the half. Eventually, in the third and fourth quarter, Albany, they controlled that. And it was an emotional win for the Patroons on Friday night.
Yeah, and it's a fascinating scenario. You got this team in Albany who, coming into the season, they're up there towards the top of the list of favorites, not just in the East, but league-wide. They lost their first game, but from then on went semi-gangbusters. And then Jack has spoken a number of articles, and we've spoken about this with him on the podcast, which is they started good, and they've just been getting better and better. And one of the things that they've been able to do recently is close games. They're not losing those leads in the fourth quarter. They're not letting teams get back into games that they shouldn't let teams get back into. At least vis-a-vis the eye test in Millinghouse's first game back. And if the folks at home aren't familiar with Shadell Millinghouse, this is one whale of a player. I mean, he was awesome.
That was a heck of a player.
Yeah. He was awesome when he was healthy, and then was out last season. I didn't know he was returning at all this season. The fact that he's back pre-All-Star break is pretty cool. So it's sort of a scenario wherein the rich have just gotten richer. With him in the lineup, though, did you see him fitting in to the scheme that you were so hyped about, that you were so enthusiastic about when we last spoke about the Patroons, which is the Patroons have recently found their identity as a running team. And this game ended, 96-91. Was there a lot of running in this game, or was this a half-court game? What did you see stylistically, if there was anything different from the previous several games that got you so enthusiastic about the Patroons?
I think he fit that kind of mold that I was talking about, that this team likes to get out and run. He's a guy, like I said, who brought that energy in the first game, and he brought it on the fast break. He's getting guys out, and they're not slowly rolling the ball up court. They don't like, drain the clock on offense.
Mm-hmm.
They don't like that half court. They like to get out. They like to get out and run. They have a lot of athletes on the team, including Millinghouse. Even though he might not look, he's bald now, but he's got some weight too to throw around. He's very good inside. When he drives, he's a force, and he knows how to finish too. And in the beginning, it looked like it was a little bit of an adjustment. You're almost like, oh boy, but no, he picked it up, and his play picked up just like the Patroons' play did in that second half. And he's only going to get better. He's not going to get worse. He's still getting back into this pace of play here in the TBL and getting even better acclimated to his role on the team. I think this team only gets better. And I think that he's already starting to show signs that he can fit, or not even just that, he is fitting into that.
Right away he's fitting in.
Fast-paced offense. Yeah, right away he's fitting in that fast-paced offense, but I can see him being even better. Yeah,
so it's like an Uncle Drew scenario. Right?
Yeah, it excites me. Yeah.
Cool. I love it. And I love the discussion of Millinghouse maybe coming out like the withered veteran. Oh, can he keep up with the young guns on the fast break? And the truth is, right away, he can. And the Patroons are better for it. So that's their Friday night win. It's emotional and ecstatic. We're going to get to what happens to them a little later in week 5. There might have been a letdown. Hey, those things will happen from time to time. But first, we're going to go over to our patient friend, Owen, over here. He's champing at the bit to talk about a pretty sizable Kokomo victory over Lebanon. I've been trained now to say it like a Midwesterner. Oh, and I don't know if you can grade me on this, but it's not Lebanon like we say here on the West Coast. It's Lebanon if you're from Indiana. So Kokomo plays Lebanon Friday night. And last week I spoke with Chris Lowry, who's the voice of the BobKats. Right? And I asked him, Chris, what would you like to see as we head into the All-Star break? Any chance that the Bobcats kind of fall asleep? Last weekend before we go into the break, coming off a real emotional weekend where they take over first, they play in Glass City, yada, yada, yada. Another Seinfeld reference for you guys. I yada yada over the best part. And Chris said, look, I'd be really happy if they came away with these 2 road games, week 5 heading into All-Star break with a split. If they go 1-1. They did not go 1-1. They very much went 2-0. It started Friday night against Lebanon. You had mentioned when we last spoke last week, Owen, that you were excited about Isaac Edmondson's return for Lebanon. Did Coach Livingston seem kind of tuned in on him? What did they do to upset Edmondson's offensive rhythm? And what did they do more holistically to put the clamp on the Lebanon Leprechauns offense?
Yeah, most definitely. And as far as your pronunciation of Lebanon, my check, it did. Although
it checks out.
Before my experience with the TBL, I was not too familiar with Lebanon myself. You learn something new every day. Lebanon.
Yeah, you will out yourself, TBL fans, if you're saying Lebanon. It's Lebanon, the Lebanon Leprechauns. And tell us about this nasty Bobcats defense.
Yeah, most definitely. So they're back at it again, doing the same things they've been doing basically this whole season, holding teams under 100. They did it in both contests, and stopping star players as well. I think it's something they must pregame before these matchups and plan to put a halt to these guys, because time and time again, if you're going to be scoring large amounts or scoring more than your average, you're usually going to be one of the role players or one of these bench guys, definitely not the stars. So we saw Isaac Edmondson, who averages, I believe, low 20s, be held to 14, but he did have 10 rebounds and 6 assists. But for a player of his caliber, 14 points is definitely a little bit low.
And he was inefficient, right? Like he had trouble putting the ball in the bucket.
Right. Yeah. Let me check that efficiency. That was definitely my point with this next guy, Deontay Raines, who's also a big scorer.
Yeah, he had a tough one. In your article, I think you said Raines shot, was it 17%, 27%?
Yeah, so Edmondson had shot 33% on 4 of 12 shooting. And then Raines, their second leading scorer with 19 points per game, had went 3 of 17. Yeah,
that's a rough game.
17.6%, most definitely. And that's just you get to the point where that's almost what you expect when you're going up against this Kokomo Bobcats team. And to dive into a little bit more about what they're actually doing to stop these guys, Edmondson, they were on him like glue. They were a majority of the game they were actually picking him up on the other side of the court. So before he had
and just for clarification, Owen, Edmondson is like a power forward, right? So if you're picking him up full court, it's not that you're defending the ball all the way down. You're just you're just denying him the ball. Is that right?
Yeah, he's got a larger build, but he is kind of one of those pass first type guys. He does average a lot of assists, and he does do a lot of the ball handling for them. But I would
gotcha. Okay,
as a forward, most definitely. So when he would have the ball, they'd be meeting him immediately. They're going to be right in the face of all the guys they're defending. If you're going to try to drive the ball, they're going to converge on you. I mean, there's no way you're going to drive and not have at least 2 guys on you. So you're going to want to look for that pass, but then they make teams settle for shots that they don't like taking. So when they played the Lebanon Leprechauns,
who are those guys? Different team.
They half of Lebanon's shots were 3-pointers. So 41 3-pointers in the game and only made 8 of them. So they're shooting 19.5% from 3. It's obviously not the shots they want, but it's the shots they're forced to take when you're getting guarded as close as these Kokomo Bobcat defenders are on these guys.
If you don't mind jumping in real quick, Owen, it sounds to me, like I'm a Syracuse guy, I'm an Orange, and our famed 2-3, which I don't know if we'll ever play again. We'll see what our first new coach in 41 years, 45? Something like that, 45, I think. We'll see what he does. That's besides the point. the point that I'm trying to make here is I'm used to seeing defenses that force you to take jump shots.
Right.
And it seems like that's what Livingston wants you to do, right?
It is, most definitely. But when I think of Syracuse myself, I definitely think of the zone. But
Right.
I wouldn't classify this as zone defense. It's definitely a lot of movement. Like I said, if guys are driving, people are going to leave their man and converge on that driver. But it's really just being really up in the face of the guy that you're guarding with Kokomo. Stopping that pass from the start, like how you mentioned with Edmondson.
Right. So I don't know how much you've seen of the Enid Outlaws this season. Enid is one of the very competitive teams in a very competitive Central Conference. And I had the pleasure of sitting down with the voice of the Potawatomi Fire, who currently back in first place in the Central last week. And Chris Cox was talking about Enid's defense, how they make you take jump shots. And that's exactly why I brought up Syracuse. I think I had Enid on the mind, so I had the 2-3 on the mind. I had zone defense on the mind. They're one of these long teams who says, go ahead, shoot it. But we're not letting you get to the basket. And just like you're saying about Kokomo, we're not letting you get the shots that you want. So just to reiterate, so I have it straight, Owen, so I can watch the next 7 weeks correctly when I watch these BobKats make their run to the postseason. The BobKats defense is just get down in stance, play man-to-man, and very fundamental guard, recover, replace defense. I think I have the order right. Right. They're playing straight up man-to-man, and they're just in the right place at the right time, and they're playing super aggressively on the ball.
They are, and their all-star Derek Hawthorne is the one who leads the charge in that regard. Excellent offensive player, but he gives it his all every play he's on defense. And I think when his teammates see that, they follow suit.
Look, that's at the end of the day, that's kind of what it's all about when you see good defenders in the NBA. What's the difference between a good one and a not so good one? And they say it all the time on every broadcast, and every coach says it. Effort. Do you get down in the stance? Do you pull your shorts up and want to stop the guy who's dribbling the ball, or you don't? Hawthorne does. All of the BobKats do. That's a great analysis, Owen. Thank you for that. I'm going to ask Jack here for a potentially different kind of analysis. This, again, sort of like how you spoke about the emotion of the Friday night game that between the Patroons and the Lightning. Was Saturday's game against Alma also an emotional one in the complete opposite way? Because they lost. The Patroons lost on Saturday to Alma, a team they've beaten a few times already. Jack, what happened?
Well, I think you play a team as many times as they have played the Alma, and we say the same thing about it. We say the same thing in football. Heck, we say the same thing in college basketball. We say it in the NBA, in the regular season series. I think it would be unfair to not say it about this one, too. I mean, you play a team a certain amount of times, you know what they want to do. And you can work to stop it, and eventually it's going to work. You're eventually going to shut them down because Alma is still a talented basketball team. Marc-Andre Forden had a good game, and he led Alma to the win. And it was not a bad game. But it did get away from the Patroons in the third. They got outscored 34-15 in the third quarter, and they found themselves down after 3 quarters, and they just could not claw their way back. And you're not gonna win every game. You're gonna lose some games. You're gonna lose some disappointing games. This is definitely a disappointing game, but I don't think it should be lost on it should make the London win less significant and not as significant because you lost the next day. That doesn't erase what a good weekend it was for the Patriots, but it definitely was disappointing.
Yeah, look, they definitely proved that they can hang with the best, right? They proved that they can beat the best of the best, and you're right. You're going to have some letdowns sometimes. So, Jack, as you mentioned that loss to Alma and that the Patroons were leading at halftime, and Alma comes out gangbusters in the second half. Angel Martinez has as a guest on his wonderful show, One-on-One with Angel, which is syndicated on tblnews.co. Thursday night, head coach of L'Académie Alma, David Petrozello, Am I pronouncing that correctly, Owen? I got that right? Petrozello. So I would love to know, and I would sure you would agree, Jack. I'd love to know what Coach Petrozello said at halftime. Was there table throwing? Was there some salt smelling? They came out with their heads on fire, or at least their hair on fire. They looked pretty darn good in that second half. And if you go read Jack's article on this, you'll get the details on just exactly how good Alma looked in that second half. Look, maybe it was a bit of an emotional letdown from Albany. Maybe they're a little tired. You can understand that, but you don't win them all, and you get a good coach like Petrozello saying the right thing at halftime. And sometimes the team with the record that's not as good beats the team with the record that's better. It happens. It was a good game.
Sorry, I don't have the exact total or like the exact score, and I'm getting it in a second here, but it was 57-43 Albany at the start of the third quarter. This game easily could have gotten out of hand. The Patroons have had good third quarters.
Mm-hmm. They were up 14, they were up 14 at the half?
Yeah, they were up 57-43, and they had a good third quarter the night before against London.
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, I honestly would like to know. I think a lot of times when that happens, that you, as a fan, are like, Jesus, what did he say to his team at half? Good
any
Lord,
table flipping?
Coming out with their heads on fire, the hair on fire. Good Lord, yeah.
Right, some smelling salts.
Something like that. Yeah, no, right. Yeah.
So I'll put in a note to Angel. Jack is wondering, what did Coach Petrozello say at halftime? Because Alma came out, as I'm going to use your words, came out with their hair on fire. We'll see if we can get you some answers tomorrow night on
I appreciate that.
One-on-one with Angel, Jack. I'll report back. Keep up with us on Twitter. You know our handle, right? It's TBL News Official. Just in case you didn't hear that at home, that's at TBL News Official. We'll post about that on Twitter. That's fun. That's some cross promotion that we're running over there. Owen, your boys went 2-0. Again, Chris Lowry said he would have been happy if they went 1-1. They went 2-0 by a total of 49. This was a huge weekend for Kokomo. They did not fall asleep. If anything, they looked like they have the killer instinct. They're going to run away with the Upper Midwest after All-Star break. They are, aren't they? Like, come on. You can tell us, Owen. They're going to run away with this thing, right?
I will say they are on a 8-game win streak against TBL teams, so that bodes pretty well for them. And they only seem to be beating teams by larger and larger margins. So they had taken down the Lebanon Leprechauns by 22 and then went ahead and took down West Virginia Grind on Sunday by 27. And Nick, for you, Coach Petrozello.
So I'm adding an I in there?
You might be.
Petrozello, not Petrozello. Okay.
Right, there you go. Yeah, I
think we're trying for the accent there.
I'm always looking to add a little something, and sometimes it just gets me in hot water.
It's good to have in mind.
Well, to my fan out there, I apologize. I got a little cartoonish on that one. Coach Petrozello. Coach Petrozello, I apologize. Now he's never going to come on the show.
Shoot. The question won't be answered.
So you know how sometimes I like to impart some wisdom on you guys. I did all of this on purpose, by the way. I know how to pronounce Coach Petrozello's name, of course. He's an old friend. I want to make sure that you guys are on your toes, and now forever. You have it on record what not to do. If you're going to pronounce somebody's name on air, pronounce it correctly. Don't do what I just did, even though I did it on purpose. All right, guys, I'm going to read a quick ad here. We've never done this before. We're taking a break. There's an ad, and if you guys feel like just chiming in, you can, but I'm not going to give you any space to do so because I'm going to read this ad really quickly. Here's the ad. It goes like this. TBL All-Star Weekend 2023 is here, or just about here, depending on when you're listening to this episode, and you can play the All-Star Pick'em Challenge for great prizes like an Amazon gift card, which is, in our modern times, basically just money. You could win a free TBL TV League Pass. You could win a cameo from your favorite TBL player, and much more. Visit tblnews.co to play. Follow the Basketball League on Twitter. That's at TBL Pro League. And on Instagram, where the league's handle is at T Basketball League. And follow TBL News on Twitter and Instagram and TikTok, where we are at TBL News official, because we'll be posting like crazy about the TBL All-Star Pick'em Challenge. Now, back to your regularly scheduled program, and now on to something super fun. Jack and Owen, we're talking about these teams that you guys put together. So if you've seen recently on TBL News, folks at home, Brad, Jack, and Owen did a really fun thing. They did a draft where they each selected their ultimate TBL starting five. Now, this was done before the All-Star teams were announced, so not everyone on the list is an all-star, but everyone on the list is an all-star in our hearts. So we can talk about them as all-stars, just more in a nebulous sort of way. They feel like all-stars, but they are all great players. They're all great young men. So let's talk about them. Yeah. Owen, who's your starting five?
Yeah, so the guys gave me the pleasure of having the first overall pick. It was very nice.
How magnanimous.
With my first selection, I had to go with maybe the ultimate playmaker in the TBL, definitely one of the most clutch players, Chris Darrington, who already has notched 2 game-winning three-pointers on the season, for those keeping track. He's also averaging over 30 points per game and gets it done with assists and rebounds as well.
And a game-winning free throw with no time on the clock. That was pretty interesting.
Man,
that was Lebanon. That was against Lebanon.
Okay. That's right.
Okay, I shouldn't interrupt. Let me sit back. I'm going to mute myself. Keep going. You got Darrington with the first pick.
Yep. And then as far as my other picks, I can't really remember the order, but I know I had picked up Greg Howard from Cincinnati for shooting guard. Guy brings some G League experience to the Warriors this season, and he played really well when I went down to Cincinnati and checked him out. Really big frame, really can throw his weight around, and he's going to be able to drive to the bucket, kind of bully his way to the hoop against pretty much any guard he'll go up against this year. Maybe besides a few, Derek Hawthorne, maybe a few others. And then for small forward, I got Orlando Little Jr. Love his game as well. Saw him play twice in Kalamazoo. Well-rounded player. Good, fits the small forward role well because he can fill a box score, gets assists, gets rebounds, can shoot the three decently well. Really athletic. Creates separation really well while driving the ball. And then he's got a lot of strength also. And then stayed in Kalamazoo for the power forward. Went with Justin Moss, guy who played for the Syracuse Stallions last year in the TBL. And he has only elevated his game this season. It was impressive player last year, and he's just gotten that much better. Leader of the Kalamazoo Galaxy, averaging a double-double with 20-plus points. And then for my last pick, I went with Montel James, top 5 rebounder in the TBL, averaging 12.7 rebounds per game, as well as 18 points per game. And he plays for the Owensboro Thoroughbreds. And with this roster, I had chosen only players I saw play personally, like me, myself.
I did not realize that wrinkle. So this is, yes, this was a theme pick. I understand. Okay, you're putting pins in the map, and representing those pins are the players on your powerhouse ultimate starting five.
Yeah, it only felt right.
I understand. Yeah, look, you want to have what did we say at the top of this? This is a very emotional podcast. We're full of emotion on this one. It has to be tied to emotion, or it doesn't feel good. Jack, who's on your team?
Yeah. Let me just say also, I don't know if Brad brought this up, but Brad actually gave the first pick to Owen.
I heard that.
I don't know if he brought that up, but no, I can't imagine he was happy after the first 2 picks. I'm gonna be honest. I think because I went with yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, Owen, Brad, this nice guy. He's got such a nice way about him. He's always smiling, and he says, "Sir." Great Southern manners. He's a gentleman. He's a real Southern gentleman. He lets you have the first pick, and you stab him in the back.
Yeah,
you knew he wanted Darrington.
I might have slipped my mind.
I don't recall. I love it. Yeah. You're under oath, Owen. All right, Jack.
I don't know. Brad's a great guy, but if you're given the chance to take Chris Darrington, I don't think it's fair to pass him up.
We're capitalists after all, right?
Yeah.
It's a zero-sum game out there, folks. Dog eat
Welcome
dog.
to America. This is America.
All right, Mr. America. All right, Captain America. Tell us who's on your ultimate TBL team.
All right. So with the first pick I got, number 2 overall, I picked Terrell Wilson from the Gulf Coast Lions. That 65-point game was nuts. Remembering that, the no-brainer for me at number 2. Excuse me, the next pick I got was number 5, and that was Cameron Mitchell from the Kentucky Enforcers. Now he's only played 7 games this year, but he's averaging 34 points. He was averaging 34.7. He's now averaging 36.6, and he's put up 44 points twice. And mind you, this is in 7 games this year. Right. And while you like to see him on the court more often, it's pretty tough to pass a talent like this when it falls to you. And Mitchell, he also can bring down boards as well. He's averaging 8 rebounds a game. And the third pick, I picked Purcell Washington, power forward center from Little Rock. And Little Rock hasn't been great this year by TBL standards, but Washington's been great. He's put up 20 boards, 20 points, 13 and a half rebounds per game. He's been a bright spot for the Lightning, and
I think he's leading the league in rebounds, right?
He was, yeah. He was. He quite literally is, yeah. So that was a no-brainer for that pick. And then the 4th round, 11th pick overall, I picked Marlon Hunter from the Central Florida Force. 8 games this year, is averaging 26 and a half points per game, 10 and a half rebounds per game. He's also averaging a steal and a half per game. Should point that out. And, he's another guy, I think, that can score with the best of them in TBL, and he's tough inside, and he has a good sense of what is a good shot. And I think I valued that more in this draft rather than players who shoot several 3-pointers a night, because he doesn't shoot many 3-pointers. He averaged not even shooting over 2 a game. It's not a lot. And so I had him team up with Jaquan Newton, who was my last pick of the draft in round 5. And in 8 games this year, he's averaging 25.7 points per game, a little over 5 boards and 2.5 assists, over a steal a game too. And he's good at creating his own shot, and he doesn't shoot too much from the 3 like Marlon Hunter. So a lot of this team is going to be inside. And I think with all these guys can score. And the All-Star game, if this All-Star game ends up being a high-scoring game, I would like my chances of my team coming out on top.
Well, that's what I wanted to get into, and that's how we're going to put a bow on this whole thing. So the disembodied voice is going to float in, Deus Ex Machina. And here's what I'm going to say about the teams that Owen, Jack, and Brad have drafted: is they're wildly differently. They're constructed wildly differently. They're wildly different constructions. So Owen's team: Chris Darrington, Greg Howard, Orlando Little Jr., Justin Moss, Montel James. Just great balance. You got the scorers, you got the rebounders, you got the guys who can clog the paint. Jack's team: Jaquan Newton, Marlon Hunter, Terrell Wilson, Cameron Mitchell, Purcell Washington. All these guys put the ball in the bucket, and Purcell Washington is there to clean it up when they don't. Now, Brad's team is an interesting one. You got Deshaun Munson, Anthony Carmen, Fudge Moore, Derek Hawthorne. He got you back in the end, didn't he, Owen?
Yeah.
He did have the last laugh.
He had the last laugh, and Lyle Hexum. So it's not a very traditional looking team. When I spoke with him about his team yesterday, the fun of it is they are going to say, come and guard us on the 3-point, guys. Come and guard us at the 3-point line. And when you do that, we're going to use our quickness to go backdoor on you. He was thinking pretty strategically. I got to hand it to him. But I'll tell you what this does. Is I don't know which team wins. But this makes for one interesting World Cup style, first round, the group stage when they all play each other a bunch of times, and it's a wild round robin, and it matters who outscores who by more goals. The point differential would be very, very critical to deciding the winner of this group between Owen, Jack, and Brad. Get onto tblnews.co, folks. Read this article. Check out why they chose the players they chose. Lots of statistics in this article. It's a great read. A lot of these guys, though not all of them, but a lot of them are going to the All-Star game this weekend.
I'll be there.
Yeah. Jack will be there. I will be there.
I won't.
Owen, it's the first game he misses all season.
The party.
It's just to the wrong side of the central time zone. That's what it is. He won't cross that dividing line.
Indianapolis, that's a good city for TBL events. I think they should keep with that.
Then they got to put up a higher bid. Next year in Indianapolis. Yeah. Well, as my people say, next year in Israel, but hey, maybe next year in Indianapolis instead. One way or the other. Jack Morgan, Owen Whetstone. Good job, fellas. I like these meetings. This is fun. I like being I'm like the parents in Charlie Brown. I'm going even further back with references that you guys won't know. But in Charlie Brown, you never see the parents. You just see their legs, or maybe you don't even see them at all. You just kind of hear voices in the background. You don't even hear language.
I don't even know Charlie Brown as parents.
You do, exactly.
You want to know.
He does have parents. He doesn't just take care of himself. The parents are rather negligent, letting him hang out with vicious animals and very smelly, dirty children who
assume that they're there.
You assume they're there, but you don't know. And it's the 60s. Anything could happen. But right now, this year, this day, this week, it's All-Star Week. What's going to happen at All-Star? We're going to have a lot of fun. I'm going to see my boy Jack in person. We've known each other for a few years. This is going to be a nice little reunion for us. Owen, You're going to miss out, man. We'll send you selfies.
That'll be good.
We'll show you all the fun that you are missing out on.
Damn, we're going to make him jealous now.
In the rainy Midwest, where April showers bring May flowers, it should be a good crop season. It sounds like for the Heartland.
There you go.
Down the road, we'll all get together.
All right. Well, that's something I like the sound of. Owen Whetstone, Jack Morgan, thank you, gentlemen, for joining me. Thanks for all your hard and excellent reporting for TBL News. Let's sign off by saying something like, from the TBL News Desk, signing off.
Signing out from the TBL News Desk.
I like it.
Where's your version, Jack? Let's hear you do it. Let's hear that sign off.
Signing off from the TBL News Desk. I'm Jack Morgan.
Something like that. Love it. I'm actually going to say Petrozello's name correctly, and